The scenes at the Under-21 Championship match between Offaly and Dublin at Parnell Park 2 weeks ago was described by some eyewitnesses as the worst ever seen at a GAA match. Suspensions were imposed on Dublin and Offaly players last Wednesday night, with the Blues suffering by far the most. Dublin were also thrown out of this year's championship, while both counties are gone for next year's Under-21 Championship. Action had to be taken, and the Leinster Council weren't found wanting, as once again Gaelic football came under the spotlight.
When I heard about this incident first, and I saw the build-up about it and talked to people, took calls from the public who were concerned, I said, we're gone far enough. No more token fines, no more soft peddling on this. We were the most unified I've ever seen a committee in saying, halt. We just have to send out a message to players, mentors, county boards that we can't stand for this any longer.
The mood within the Leinster Council Disciplinary Committee before the meeting, before they met the representatives of the two counties, was it one of anger? What do you think the mood was?
Well, there was a tension in the Leinster Council meeting room that I haven't experienced before. Seasoned campaigners, the members, the 10 members of the executive, they've been all around a long time at every level. And there was a tension there you could cut with a knife because they knew we had a big one on our hands. The eyes of the world, the Irish GAA world, and maybe even the sporting world were upon them. And they knew this was one they had to get right. There could be no sweeping under the carpet. There could be no sort of token gestures like fines or something like that. And everybody concentrated on every word that was spoken by everyone who gave evidence. And at the end of the day, they considered their decisions for a long, long time. And then they gave what I'm happy was a very fair and equitable result.
This is the first time since the Gaelic Athletic Association was founded in 1884 that a team has been eliminated from the championship for matters of discipline. The suspensions handed down are Trevor Willis, Offaly, 3 months. John Mason, Offaly, 3 months. Ivan Dunn, Offaly, 2 months. Stephen Byrne, Offaly, 2 months. Adrian Mann, Offaly, 2 months. John Green, Offaly, 2 weeks.
Offaly were in first, and the decisions were greeted with a deadly silence. Then Dublin came in. Suspensions on individuals were read out. Deadly silence again.
Damian Bolger, Dublin, 2 years. Dave Billings, Dublin manager, 12 months. Anthony O'Gorman, Dublin, 6 months. Shane Herity, Dublin, 6 months. Brendan Shovlin, Dublin, 6 months. Paul Croft, Dublin, 3 months.
And suddenly the chairman says, and Dublin are barred from continuing in this year's championship. And there was an audible moan. That was the point which really hit home to these guys that this was serious. We've had a number of calls today, both from the general public and from people in Offaly and Dublin, saying, fair play, something had to happen. Now, I'd have to be fair and honest and say that there's one area of concern among some people, and that's the fact that we have penalised, or have been seen to penalise people from next year's championship who had absolutely no part in the fracas in Parnell Park. But other than that, everything has been, the messages have been of a positive nature.
Let's dwell on that particular punishment for 1 second, because players who had nothing to do with this battle in Parnell Park and who might be eligible to play for Dublin and Offaly next year will be denied the chance to play in the Leinster Championship. Do you consider that a fair punishment?
It's not a question of whether it's fair on those guys or not. It's Dublin and Offaly, the two counties who have been penalised. And we've had plenty of examples of this in our own codes and in other codes, where people are penalised for the actions of others. You can recall the Heysel Stadium. English clubs were banned because of the spectators of one particular club. Others who were innocent weren't allowed to participate. It's the same in this situation. These two teams stepped out of line, and the repercussions are that they're out of that particular competition for the next 2 years. And Unfortunately, some people are caught up in that net. Chaps who are 21 next year, 20 next year, and eligible for the two counties, they're caught. But unfortunately, they needn't blame us. The blame lies with their colleagues of 97.
I'm sure that all the members of the Disciplinary Committee of the Leinster Council saw the video evidence last Wednesday night, or indeed before the meeting. Was it the most frightening that you personally had ever seen?
Well, I'd have to say we saw the video evidence presented by both counties, and it was incomplete and certainly inconclusive. And our decisions weren't really based on what we saw there. We had to base our decisions more on the referee's report and the evidence that was presented to us, because I think we'd be unfair if we had based any decisions solely on what we saw, because it was selective, and in one case the incidents were totally cut out.
What's your reaction, Michael, to the criticism that your punishment is a little bit too severe, considering that this was an underage game and that a lot of the players were 19 or 20, maybe lost to Gaelic games? They may in fact take up soccer.
Yeah, but if they carry on in soccer, Marty, the way they've carried on with us, they won't be kept too long there either. I think these players, if they're the men that I think that they have the makings of, that they'll learn their lesson. Now, there's a lot of them will be back playing by the end of the summer, more of them by the autumn. If they are any good to us, they'll be back keener and with a lesson learned about how to behave themselves. I don't think we'll lose anybody. And I also think that the other side will come into force, in that we'll keep an awful lot of people that we might have lost, in terms of young children, that we might have lost if we hadn't taken the action.
Within the GA structure, there are 4 provincial councils. Each might have reacted differently to last Wednesday night's meeting. Do you think that now there is a need within the GA to have one overall disciplinary committee?
I think that's a very valid point. I'm not saying that Ulster, Munster or Connacht wouldn't have done the same, or the GAC in Croke Park. They may have even been stiffer than us. But that's not the point. The point is that if a guy hits another guy, or a mentor comes on the pitch in any of the 4 provinces, or in an All-Ireland series or provincial, the same rule, same penalty should apply. And there certainly is a case for having one central body which deals with the making of fixtures, appointment of referees, the consideration of referees' reports, and then the dispensation of penalties or sanctions, as the case may warrant. But certainly there is a case for that. I can't see it happening in the immediate future, because it's the same as the provincial championships. We all like to hold on to our own little identity. We want to be autonomous. But we have to do something to make decisions such as we made the other night consistent throughout the country.
There is still, of course, the question of an appeal. If that happens, and if they're successful, and if your suspensions are reduced down by 50%, won't it make the whole Leinster Council decision a bit of a joke?
Well, I think that's what it would do, is make it a bit of a joke. But I'm confident that, having considered recent statements by the Ard Stewart and by the President about the problems of indiscipline in our games, I don't see any higher body without very just cause, unless we're found to have been technically deficient in something we did. I don't see them changing them.
You think, in other words, these suspensions will stick?
I am confident they will.
Strong medicine and stern action, therefore, from the Leinster Council. The counties involved have the right to appeal, but as you've heard, the Leinster Council are confident the Management Committee at Croke Park will support them. We did see comments from both counties, and while Christy Todd, the Offaly secretary, was willing, it was only forthcoming if Dublin did likewise. However, when contacted, the Dublin secretary, John Costello, made it very clear he had no comment to make.
Met in the final last year, of course. That day, Galway came out on top.